here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how I pack for a convention type art class. Now that's a little different than the classes I would teach at my studio where people would be bringing their own supplies and I'd only be responsible for bringing the project and my supplies. So when you're teaching at a convention or someplace where you've been hired to supply all the materials for your students as well, you want to make sure that you don't forget anything at home and that you have everything organized so your class will flow really well. So these are the containers I'm going to be bringing to the stamp show where I'm teaching my watercolor and stamping classes, and I'm going to go over what's in them. So these are the projects we're going to be making. We're going to be making 3 cards where I'll be bringing in stamped panels, and people will be coloring them, and then they can layer it and make their card with embellishments and papers. And then we're going to be doing some cards where people are actually going to be using the paint as the ink and be painting right on the rubber stamp and then pressing it onto 140-pound cold press watercolor cards. So it's 2 completely different classes, but there is some overlap in supplies, and that is why I can fit everything into 2 containers. And I really recommend that if you are doing multiple classes that you figure out some way that you can use the same supplies over and over again so that you're not, you know, bringing your entire studio over to a classroom. Plus this class is quite a ways away, and I wouldn't be able to just run home if I forgot something. So if I had to get something, I'd have to go to the store, and that would be directly taken out of my profits. So I want to make sure that that everyone has a good experience, the students have everything they need, that I don't forget anything because I don't want to be stressed out when I'm teaching. So getting everything ready a couple weeks before the class is the way that I achieve that. So in this big box here, which is just a crate from I think it was from Target or Walmart. Any of the big box stores will have these right around back to school time for about $3.50. And they've got side handles so they can handle the weight. This other container I'm using is by Creative Options, and they're actually my sponsor today. You can find them online at creativeoptionscrafts.com. They have tons of wonderful organization for your crafts and art supply storage needs. And I'll put a link below so you can check that out in the video description. So in here, I've got this page protector with the stamps that I'm going to be using. And actually the class is going to be sponsored by Lost Coast Designs, so they will have extra stamps on hand for me to use. These are my personal stamps that I want to have on hand as well. I'll be writing my name on the back of them just to make sure they don't get lost. And they're in a page protector because I store my stamps in binders. People often ask me what's in those binders behind you in some of those your videos, and they're rubber stamps. I have a huge collection. I really enjoy them. They're a collection that I also really enjoy using. So that's what's in them in case you've ever been curious about that. I decided for the layered cards I was gonna cut up a bunch of paper because I have so much paper. And I was going to make little kits for everybody in the class. But then I thought, well, my style isn't the same as everybody else's. I didn't want to make a bunch identical because I didn't have to go and order paper, and I really wanted to use up what I had for this class. And then I realized that people would probably rather just choose their own patterns, and I grabbed some of these matte stacks I had in my stash, and I like these because they're 4.5 by 6.5 inches, and my card bases are 5 by 7, so these are going to layer perfectly, and people can choose the patterns that they like before they make the card, and then they can adjust their painting accordingly. And that's also a super awesome tip and skill for people to have when they're crafting, is to choose your paper first before you color any images, because it's so much easier to match your coloring to the paper you have than vice versa, than coloring something and then trying to find paper to go with it, because that can be difficult, if not impossible. Now, the one thing I request my students to bring, because we're supposed to provide everything, but you can ask students to bring some basic supplies. I ask students to bring scissors and adhesive, and that way I don't have to come up with 25 pairs of scissors or carry 25 pairs of scissors or come up with, you know, a bunch of different adhesive dispensers. And that way, if everyone has their own adhesive dispenser, they're not going to be getting gummed up and confused with, you know, because sometimes different adhesive rollers take a while to get used to, so so that way they'll have that. But just in case anyone forgets, and for my own use, I'm going to bring my ATG gun because that contains the most affordable adhesive for me, because I buy the generic refills for that for like $1.15 a piece. So, you know, I don't mind sharing when I'm paying that for prices. And I'm also bringing this embellishment glue. It's just a Beacon 3-in-1. It's a thick, quick grabbing glue that's going to be perfect for putting on the sequins and little buttons and other things like that at the end of the cards on the first class where they're layering the cards together. For card bases, I was gonna make my own and make my own envelopes, but I was just like, you know what, I'm running out of time. So I bought these ivory A7 card. They were on sale for $5 for 50, so I got a couple of these, and then I've got a big 100 pack of Strathmore watercolor cards for the second class, and everything for both classes, my card bases, adhesives, and stamps are all right here in this crate. And if I think of anything else at the last minute, there's plenty of room for me just to toss it in there. I like that. I think it's important to have big open storage as well as small compartmentalized storage in both your craft room and in your on-the-go needs, your on-the-go on the class bags. So I'll put my cards back here so I don't lose them. All right, so now let's take a look at the compartments here and what I have in them. So I've got 3 little bins here in the bottom, and this first one, and I'm not even going to open it because you can see through it, which I like about this. We have this big hank of lace. I've got enough for like, hopefully it's not too glary. I've got enough for about 30 cards in here, so it's more than I need. I've got white buttons because they go with everything. I've got red buttons for that rose card, and then I've got an assortment. I also have a little jar of pink buttons in one of the other containers just in case somebody wants that. I've got these little floral discs. They're just these little skittly dewdrop things that you can color with a marker and make them match your project. And then I have old gift cards that I've cut up for different watercolor techniques. I love my credit card scrapers, and hopefully have enough to share with everybody there. And then some little carnival tickets that we'll use as an embellishment on the circus dogs card. If you want any more information on the classes that I'm going to be teaching, you can find that on my website, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com. And I've got a whole page just on that that class. Yeah, way with words today, way with words. Okay, here is another box where I have kind of a mishmash. I have metallic thread that I'm using as an embellishment in one of my classes. I've got paintbrushes, and actually I'm going to have more paintbrushes in there because I contacted my friends over at Royal Brush, and they're giving me paintbrushes that I can give to my students, so I'm super excited about that because that's how I found out about them, and they've been like one of my favorite brush makers ever since. It was like back in the late 90s. I took a decorative painting demo workshop in Florida, and the teacher gave us all Aqualons by Royal Brush, and I loved them, and they've been my favorite, like most recommended watercolor brush that I'm always recommending to people, and I was so excited when they said they could donate some for my students, so that was super, super nice of them. I also have some watercolor pencils. Those are also by Royal, because not everybody is going to like the watercolor technique. I know that there are going to be some people that take the class that are like, it's just too out of control. I don't like it. It's, you know, I feel like I'm going out of my lines, and they're not going to be comfortable with that. It's just human nature. Some, you know, type A people, type B people, type C people. I'm a type Z person, I think. I have no idea. But everybody's different, and I don't want anyone to feel like they didn't get anything from the class. I want to have an alternative, and if somebody hasn't tried watercolor pencils, I want to have them available because it's some people are really just going to go for those where they don't care for watercolor paint. I want to make sure I have that option. And then I also have like little pillbox with sequins because I like to keep my sequins like that. It's so easy just to grab a little pill container of sequins out of my embellishment box and, you know, throw it into a class bag. It's just very convenient. And, you know, pencil sharpeners for the watercolor pencils. And I do have some erasers in there. I don't think I'm really going to need them, but better, I have room. I have room in the thing. I can't stand to have empty space. Obviously, if you looked around my room, I can't stand to have empty space. Oh my gosh. Please don't call hoarders on me. And down here is just the paints. So I kind of was fretting a little bit. I was like, what am I going to do for the paint? Because when I first intended to do the class, I thought, well, I'll give them a supply list and they can go buy their paints and bring them. And the organizers of the show prefer that the instructors bring all the supplies except for, you know, maybe adhesive and scissors. So I was going to bring my own personal palettes, but I didn't have 25 and my classes got filled up quick. And so then I thought, well, I really also would like to have something that my students could take home with them, because I love it when I get to take something home from a class, even if it's just a little freebie. I feel so good about having something physical from the class. So what I did was I purchased these little paint trays, and they were only about 30 cents a piece. But before the class, I'm actually going to squeeze out the paints in here. And you know how far watercolor goes, and you've got to squeeze out at least like a pea-sized dollop to be able to work with it. You can't really get any less out of a tube than that. And that way people can use it in class. But then I'm going to have some press and seal saran wrap stuff. I'm going to just cut it down to rectangles, and I'm just going to have the students press it over their palette so it doesn't leak all over their purse or their bag. And then they can, you know, later on that evening, they can do some more painting, or maybe next week, they're going to have that paint. And that way they can really give it a good try out, see if they like it. And if they do, then they can invest in paints. If it's not for them, they haven't wasted any money, well, other than taking my class, which hopefully they won't feel like is a waste. I'm hoping that they get enough from that they're really happy with that. And I always like to let people try before they buy, basically, and then they can, you know, go on from there and decide what, you know, colors are important to them or what features. So I really wanted to do that for my students. So they're going to go home with a palette with paint in it and a paintbrush and their finished cards, which I think is just going to be great. For water containers, again, like in my studio, I might use a mason jar, but I didn't want to carry a bunch of heavy glass containers that I might break. Also, that would take a lot of space. So I tried to like save yogurt cups and stuff like that, but I kept throwing stuff out in the recycling bin before I realized it, and then the recycling man came, so it was just like, I need to just buy something. And I bought they're kind of like the cups that you get if you ever get a terrible glass of wine on an airplane or at the theater. They come in these cups, and I thought this would be perfect because they're not tippy. It's cheaper to get the larger Solo cups or the store brand larger plastic cups, but they're more tipsy, and I just didn't want somebody to put their brush in there and then hit it with their elbow and then, you know, wipe out everybody's project on the table. So these were only $2.50 or actually I think they were $2.40 for a package of 20, and I grabbed 2 packages just to be safe. So that's what I'm doing for the water buckets. And of course you could recycle something. I just didn't have my act together as far as saving yogurt cups. So there's that. And I am going to bring 2 things of my, I have class scissors, and I have the scissors I usually use, and these are great because they're pretty good quality, but I got a great deal at them, and then I'll just bring a bunch whenever I teach a class, and I don't have to worry about them too much. And then I've got these markers, permanent markers for coloring, the white buttons, or those little shiny skittly things I was telling you about. I call skittly things. I think there was like a product called Skittles at one point that was like the same thing, so I was like, oh, Skittles, I like that. That's a cute name. Call them Skittly Drops. Skittly Drops for my cards. Don't you want some? And you get a bag of like those clear ones at Michael's for like $5, and it lasts you for like 35 years or something. They multiply, they mate in the jar, and you'll never run out. It's pretty crazy. So I like to use those for my classroom projects because I'm always going to have more. But anyways, these are just some inexpensive permanent markers that the class can use, and I won't feel too bad if anything happens to any of them or one gets lost or whatever. So that is how I prepare for a convention class or any sort of class where I have to supply all of the materials. This container is from Creative Options. You can find them online at creativeoptionscrafts.com. I thank them for their support, and I thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends, and watch more videos because that is what keeps me in business, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.